Hi guys, into another Raina T's video. So it's a bit early in the morning. Pardon my voice. I just had a really prophetic dream, and as soon as I woke up, I wanted to, before it left my mind, get on live and share this with you because Spirit was just giving me all sorts of information, all sorts of tea, and I wanted to get it fresh off of my mind. I also wrote some things down, so I will be sharing this dream with you guys as well as my own personal interpretation on what some of the symbolisms are within this dream. Now, I want to give a bit of a shout out to a new channel that I am personally subscribed to. The channel is by a woman, and the channel is named Divine Frequency. And she put out a video that I recently watched about, she was breaking down the Ariana Grande No Tears Left to Cry video, and she was talking about a lot of the symbolisms that was featured in the video and a lot of like, yeah, honey, the dark and deep shit she was going in about. And just last night, okay, we here on Raina T's posted a video about going into other dimensions and, the afterlife and things like that, and our thought forms on that. So tonight or last night, because it's in the morning time now, um, I had this prophetic dream. So I want to share this dream with you guys and share my interpretations on some of the symbolism in the dream. So in the dream, I was in an apartment, and the city itself felt like it could possibly be New York, but it wasn't. I wasn't given any tea that it was actually New York, but I was in a skyscraper apartment building, and I was laying in my bed, okay, which is kind of indicating of a state of rest or relaxation and kind of like open kind of receptiveness, right? So near my bed on my left hand side was an open window. Okay, it was a bright open window. And as I looked up towards the sky, I could see clouds. I could see a clear blue sky. Well, it wasn't like clear, there were clouds, but a blue sky. And I started to notice something dangling in the atmosphere. Like it was like, and I started to like zoom in and sort of squint my eyes to get a closer look on what this was that it sort of caught my eye. And what I come to realize what it was it was a dangling chain. There was a chain, right? And the chain, I could see the chain itself, but I could not see what the chain was actually latched to or attached to. Whatever it was latched to or attached to was hidden within the clouds. Now, mind you, this chain is way up in the stratosphere. I mean, way up in the atmosphere. But it was like some part of me in the dream that was able to kind of zoom in and see what it actually was. And it was this glowing, fiery chain, right? So I was like, what is, I was just taken aback. I was like, what is this chain kind of suspended, like just floating in midair? So I was like, out of curiosity, I just reached out, okay, from my bedroom and from the window. I just reached out and I took hold of the chain and I started to pull and pull and pull on the chain. Now, mind you, in the dream, this was given to me later on, but my mother was in the dream. And to me, the symbolism of my mother being in the dream represents the divine feminine within me. My mother also being the one that raised me, so she's kind of like that supportive and adult authoritative figure in my life. Now, she was in a dream, but we'll get to her in a second. The chain itself, I'm not going to speak on my interpretation right now because I want to get through the good part. So I started to pull on a chain. I started to pull on a chain, pull on a chain. And finally, what came soaring down from between the clouds and the sky was like this huge airship. Okay, like this huge, it was almost like a blimp, but it was kind of like designed like a whale. I don't know if that makes sense. It kind of like had the underbelly of a great whale. And so it came like just soaring down from the sky, and it landed in the middle of the street. Okay. And it like killed people. Okay. It like just landed in the middle of the street and it like killed people. So, bitch, when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, what did I do? Okay. So let's pause right there. So again, like I said, me laying in the bed and being in a state of relaxation and kind of like I felt like I was in between sleep and awakened consciousness within the dream was symbolic for that sort of like state of mind where you're in when your magic and your receptivity to magic and signs and symbolism is most high. You know, I was there and I was kind of like just lawfully kind of daydreaming, looking up at the sky. The high rise of the apartments and where I was living indicates my, and this is just personal interpretation, right? Indicates my level of spiritual ascension being further up off of the ground than a lot of people in the streets, because it was like what I realized later when the ship came falling from the sky, it was a lot of people in the streets. Okay, it was a lot of people in the streets. So I think it kind of speaks to my awareness being kind of more like, and I'm very about space and time and extraterrestrial beings and other dimensions and galaxies, while my peers are like out here trying to chase money and chase dick and chase love and chase this and that, and it's like I'm elsewhere. So I think that does kind of speak to me in my level of consciousness where I'm naturally most the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. When I saw the chain, I think this was symbolic. It was a fiery chain. It was red and it was kind of on fire. I think the chain speaks to the plane of spirituality, because fire is it's a transcendental element. Once something goes through fire, it becomes something else, usually ash or usually vapor or usually smoke, right? So the chain being on fire and me being able to perceive the chain indicates that I have perceptive spiritual awareness to things floating around in the stratosphere, the atmosphere. And of course, my curiosity to reach out and grasp those things, I think, speaks to who I am as a magical person, and how I've grown up and just how I've just evolved. Just I've always looked beyond the veil. I've always been curious about the occult, the arcane, the dead, again, space, time, things that are beyond the scope of our immediate, you know, perceptive, visuals and things like that. I'm always looking beyond that. So to reach out and I grabbed the chain, like I said, and I started to pull and I started to pull and I started to pull, I was reaching to get some of that higher knowledge and perhaps bring it down to myself. But what I did, it was a great big mass of a thing. It was great. It was huge. It was this huge airship. Now, airships, when you think about airships, they are the ingenuity of man, yet they're also able to scope the heavens. So it's like I pulled down a tool, an object, a vessel that could have potentially led me further up into the heavens, but it came crashing down and it came crashing into the streets. Now, I think that is symbolic to potentially my destiny here on this plane in this life, which is to share knowledge, bring some sort of perspective, some sort of awareness to the things that I have witnessed or perceived or have interest in, and be on a platform like YouTube or like doing videos, and bring that to people. But I think a great deal of people in the streets are not ready, okay? And perhaps that that vessel that could have potentially taken us all up, the weight of it was so much that it crushed all these people, right? So that's my initial interpretation right away. But there's more tea, honey. There's more tea. So initially, when this happened and the ship fell out of the sky and landed in the middle of the street and crushed these people, I was in a state of panic. I was like, oh my God, like, I do? Like, I didn't mean to do this. Like, oh shit. Like, the first thing that came to my mind was the authorities. I'm in trouble. Like, I did something bad. Okay. And to speak on that state of awareness and that state of consciousness initially happening even in a dream state where it feels so real, and the fear and already the shame and the guilt feels so apparent, that's something that has been institutionalized in our culture, in our species, in our upbringing, in our society, to always look to the authorities to govern and dictate and hold prejudice over what we choose to pursue in our. That's not to say that we don't need these institutions, we don't need laws, and we don't need governance, because yeah, like if we didn't have it, it'll be a lot of anarchy going on around here, and I ain't got time for that either. But when it's holding back your spiritual ascension, and it's funny, we were just talking about this in the other video, in where how we were talking about life after death, and that okay, you can live your whole life with sitting on your hands because you don't want to go to hell, or you don't want your parents to think bad about you, or you don't want to upset this person, you don't want to do this, or you've always been told not to do this. And then you get to the other side, and then you realize that those prejudices were something that only existed on this realm, like they're not real. So you just lived your whole you wasted your whole life being afraid to live. Okay, so and I immediately felt that feeling once the deed had been done. So once the deed had been done, I was like, okay, like, bitch, don't say nothing. Like, there's no way they can possibly find out it was you. Like, a ship came falling out of the sky. Like, it could have happened, anywhere, or like, what the fuck kind of situation. I was just like, damn. So I was like, just don't speak on it. They don't say nothing about it. Like, don't speak on it. So sometime later, like, it wasn't immediately, but sometime later, okay, detectives show up at our door, and my mother was in the dream again, and she opens the door. Now, there is a woman that comes in, and I want to talk about this woman in particular, okay? She was very beautiful. Beautiful. She had a very Vanessa Williams vibe to her, early Vanessa Williams. Very mixed heritage, or mixed biology, genealogy, whatever you want to call it. Long thick hair that went down to her back. It was like an auburn. I remember all this. It was like an auburn and brown color. It had like brown and auburn and streaks of like blonde in it. She was just that girl. She looked like that beautiful woman that was also really about that damn law. You see him in the movies all the time. Very Vanessa Williams, okay? I think Vanessa Williams played a part like that in her early correct acting career where she was like a policewoman and it's like, damn girl, you gorgeous as hell, but you could lay down the law. And so she comes in and she's like, can we speak to, and she says my initial government name, right? So, for those of you that are listening and haven't realized by now, I myself, who am a part of Raina Tees, okay, we are one entity, honey, but I myself am trans, okay? And I think I've said this in other videos. I've also said this gone through with the whole process. Not the whole process, but at least having the legal documentations match up to the gender that I identify as. So my name has been changed, yes. So anyone who uses my pre transition name, I feel is doing one of two things. It's either they're trying to deliberately demean my transition and demean my character, or again, like they don't have any respect for the transition and the strides that I made. Because it's like, if you introduce yourself, if you come to someone and you're like, oh, my name is such and such, but just call me this. I'd rather you call me this. And it's a nickname, or it's a shorter version of your name. And that person decides to else, or maybe remix the name that you gave them to their own discretion. It's not something that you like, or you told them that you're okay with them addressing you as, you're gonna kind of feel like, okay, like, bitch, you're trying to slight me, like, bitch, you're trying to be funny or something, right? So when she came in, it was already like, okay, like, bitch, you have this condescending sort of bigotry attitude about you. It wasn't initial at first, but when she came in, she was like, I need to speak. Can I speak to such and such? And my mother was taken back. My mother was like, well, are you referring to, in the dream, she said, are you referring to my name as of now? And so she said, something just popped. Yes, honey, the spirits are here, honey. Um, and so Miss Vanessa Williams, we'll call her Vanessa Williams for the time being. Miss Vanessa Williams, she goes, yes and no. As far as she says, as far as we're concerned, we're gonna address him as such and such. Okay. So I was already like, bitch, really? Like who the fuck are you? Kind of situation. She's like, well, I'm detective such and such and such, and I want you to tell me a little bit about what happened with the other day. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know what you're talking about, girl. Because unless you show me the receipts, I don't know what you're talking about, girl. Okay, so where's the receipts? So she's like, well, we have your fingerprint. First, before she even says that, it's like this back and forth because she's trying to initiate a space for me to confess, and I'm like, bitch, I don't know what you want me to confess to, honey. I didn't do anything. What are you talking about? And so she's like, well, let's just cut down to the chase. We have your fingerprints, okay, on the chain. And, a lot of people have lost their, she didn't say lives, okay? She said another word. And this is what brings me to thinking that it was more about the airship being a symbolic representation of knowledge than it was about anything else, because she didn't say lives. She was like, a lot of people have lost their, what was the word? Oh my gosh, like, I don't want to stretch this video out, but the word had to do something. It wasn't logic, but it was something that had to do with the mind. Like it was given to me, like it was saying, like, you've shifted them, like you disturbed their balance, kind of situation is what she was saying to me. She was like, a lot of people lost their such and such, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, well, look, you know I did not know what this was. I didn't know that the to that sort of vessel. So, bitch, what the fuck? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I just saw the chain and, I was curious. And she was like, okay, well, why didn't you call when you saw the chain, why didn't you call the authorities and report a strange object in the atmosphere? Why didn't you da 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 da? Why didn't you da 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 da? And I'm like, okay, like who thinks who thinks to do some shit like that? Like you see something strange floating in the air, you're either gonna do two things. You're either gonna stand there and wait for it to manifest itself, which is usually what happens in the horror movies and it ends pretty badly, or you're gonna take out your fucking phone and you're gonna start recording the shit. And it's funny, like something in my mind, this is coming to me now, something in my mind when I saw the chain was like, take out your phone and record the shit. But it was something also that gravitated me towards the chain itself and its enigmatic sort of essence, and I reached for it. So let's keep going. So all of a sudden we are all of a sudden we are out of the apartment and we're now in the streets at the scene of the the airship that is on the ground, okay? And this tea is given to me. This information is given to me. It was not explained to me verbally, but it was just given to me that the airship, okay, that the history of that airship, that that there are two of them, okay, and they both come from two different countries, and in a time long ago, in whatever dimension that was, okay, and I'm gonna talk about the symbology of the ships, but in a time long ago, these two airships or these two countries were at war with each other, and they fought so much, but they were of equal standings in their strengths as well as their weaknesses against one another. Neither one could prevail. So eventually, over time, so much of their resources was exhausted by trying to dominate the other that they realized it would be in their best interest to coexist and commingle. So the airships, which there are two of them, and they were chained to one another, okay, but I pulled one out of the sky, okay. There were two of them, and what they are a representation of the history of that struggle that they had to over dominate one another, and now they coexist. So they are chained between each other and they are suspended in the air or floating in the atmosphere. Now, let's talk on the symbolism thus far. So again, talking about Miss Officer and her presence being there, and me being very captivated by her beauty, I think that there is a commercial standing with looks and obviously gender and sexuality within this country. And I feel that now I've experienced this myself in my own dealings, is that being trans, even though it's not new, it is still in a process of being really recognized under needing domestic and civil rights, right? So there are still people out there that will not grant me the same. They will not serve me, in public, or my people in in their public owned establishments or private owned establishments. They, want to reserve the right to discriminate, to, pass prejudice. There are people that write and believe disgusting things about people like me. And, but yet and still, someone like her, in her beauty and her commercialized presence, would be given a position of authority and come into the situation with such a condescending attitude in the door and addressing me by my previous name as well as previous associated gender. And then when my mother, okay, which is that in the dream is kind of recognized as the security and the comfort and the understanding, the divine feminine, the embracive, the empress, the nurturing. Okay, when she explained to her, well, what do you mean? Like, this is such and such. Like, she's a girl, and for her to say no, well, like, no, like, I'm not going to recognize her as that. That is again her usurping her. It's one thing if she was just another person on the street and she just was like, okay, like, I'm going to reserve my opinion to not address you as such. But when you're coming when you're coming through your profession as, a police, as authority, then it is, you're on duty. So it's your job to, you know, respect and reserve and revere the rights of me as a citizen, right? At least that's what I believe. I mean, the girls to be doing other shit, as we clearly see when we turn on the damn news. But anyway, so I think that there is still a culture of that, definitely, that exists, and they exist within these positions of power. Now, moving on, about the two airships, okay? So I believe that the two airships represent the divine masculine and divine feminine aspects of consciousness, and how, it's very symbolic in tarot within the high priest, the hangman, and also the chariot as well, about balancing, taking, having these opposing elements in balance and being able to move forward, being able to experience these higher levels of consciousness when you expand and you accept your divine masculine and feminine. Because a lot of people, you know, they exist too far on one side versus the other. If you're too into your divine feminine, then you become too susceptible, too subservient, too, receptive, like always receiving. And that can become a burden because you're always receiving. You don't have boundaries. You don't establish, walls. You don't have strength. You don't have confidence. You don't stand up for yourself. And on the other side, if you have too much masculine, you're too dominating. You're too dogmatic. You're, aggressive. You don't really have peace. You're kind of like rooted in a sort of carnal, primordial kind of aspect of going about and doing things. And that's not always how situations need to be approached. So we all have to balance those things. And a lot of which in our videos, and I know like we haven't hit a lot of it yet, but sometimes like when we're doing readings and stuff like that, and we do, we yeah, we be cutting up and we be talking smack, and it'd be a good time, and a lot of it is just for the entertainment, but the underlying message behind a lot of what we're saying is to bring that shit back into balance. Because if you're in a situation where you're too involved in your divine feminine, then you're giving over too much of your personal power to someone, especially in these love situations, okay? And if you're too, I thought something going on. If you're too involved in your divine masculine, then you feel, you're kind of in a stagnant place where you're not able to learn and evolve and grow. You're not able to hold accountability for your own errors, which keep leading you to the same situation. So that's what a lot of what we, so I'm not saying I'm perfect in that regard, but it also shows that a person of my caliber, being transgender, is in and of itself a walking representation of walking in that duality. Because yes, I came into this world with a certain sex, but I embraced the opposite gender, and evolved into being that opposite gender. Okay, so that's the duality. That's the duality that I walk and that I embrace. So carry on, because I'm sorry that, but so let's see what else we have. Okay, so that's the symbolism and the history of it being so far apart. And like I was telling you guys, the story of the history and how they were constantly trying to dominate each other. You know, one, but in truth, one can't exist without the other because, as I explained before, if you have too much of one side, you don't have the strengths of the others to balance you out. And we need both to survive. We need both to survive and to elevate and graduate and evolve, especially spiritually. Like, not even on a mundane level, but spiritually, to break away from the constant ingrained brainwashing that hinders us from our magic. Okay, because when I first came into this bitch, okay, as a jit and as a child, I had a lot of magical potential. A lot. And yes, a lot of it is still innate within me, innate, and it's a natural phenomenon within me. But over the course of constantly being told, don't do that, that's not right, you're going to go to hell, don't talk like that because that's crazy, they're going to put you in a mental institution, nobody else thinks like that, what are you doing, like that's sinful, that's devilish, that's, oh my god, like you must be one of them. You start to believe it, you start to become that, and you give away your personal power. So, you know, a great deal of my own journey has been seeking what's beyond what's been told to me in the streets and seeing what else exists within the clouds. That's why I started the dream, you know, in a high story building. Not to say like I'm above everybody or anything else like that, because trust me, honey, I have my flaws too. But where I'm seeking to evolve and learn and again be held accountable, it's of up there. I'm looking up there. So the next part of the dream, so I got that history, honey, and I'm back down in the streets or whatever, and you know, so Miss Fish, honey, she is down there, and basically I'm sitting on the top of a cop car, and she's talking to my mother, and when her and my mother returned to me, my mother is now calling and referring to me as my previous name. Okay, I don't want to say post. It's previous my previous name. And so, you know, like when she initially said it to me, I was taken aback. So I was like, well, girl, really? Now you too? Wow, kind of situation. And I think that's symbolic to not actually my mother, but me being trans and having so many people out there that I guess to say don't believe, or have an objective perspective or a different perspective or whatever against what I believe in or how I'm identifying myself. Yes, it can be questionable sometimes. Sometimes, yes, it's like I have those moments where I think to myself, you know, is this really, am I doing the right thing? Am I living truth? You know, what is my authentic truth? Is this it? And I feel like, you know, my mother in the dream was possibly another, at all of these characters in the dream were all fragments and aspects of me, but what were they saying to me? And I believe that my mother in the dream was saying to me, when she came back to me and said those things, and she called me by my name, I believe it was saying to me that sometimes I can let other people get to me. You know, I can let other people interfere with my own concept of truth, because my own concept of truth is simply that, it's my own concept. And even though a person as beautiful as this stranger and awe-inspiring as this stranger can say something like that, you know, she could also just as easily convince someone as close to me as a mother figure, you know, to think the same thing, and it will leave me kind of shaken. So she said that, and I was like, damn, bitch, okay, I see you, girl. Like, really? What? And I think I even said in the dream, I was like, well, I tell you what, if you're not going to refer to me, and I'll say this to anybody, if you're not going to refer to me as the appropriate name or gender, then we're not going to have a conversation. Because I ain't going to sit there and tolerate no bitch's disrespect, honey. Excuse my French. I ain't gonna sit there and tolerate nobody's disrespect, honey. I am too old for that shit. Okay, so I'll be like, conversation done, honey. Bye. Bye. No, bye. So I said that in the dream. I was like, if you're not gonna talk to me right, then like we don't need to have a conversation at all. And I believe the officer, Miss Vanessa Williams, she kind of lightened up at that point, but she was still in her, in herself. So, honey, she gets on the stage and she makes this grand speech, right, to the general public because the people were like, what happened? Who is this person? Is this the perpetrator? Like, who do we have to blame for our family members and our friends like being disrupted and killed in the streets? And so Miss Thing, she gets up there and she's like, yes, it is I who had, I found it was this person and we're going to bring them to justice. And don't you worry, we're going to rebuild our city. We're going to rebuild our streets. And right, I just want you to know XYZ, XYZ. And she goes and she takes a brick, right? She takes a brick and as she picks up the brick, she turns to me and she says, you're going to be the reason that I elevate into office, with this sly smile, right? And then she turns and she walks over to where these men, they look like, property owners, kind of big wigs situation, whatever. Maybe even the mayor. She goes and she places a brick in like they were building, I guess, a wall. And I think the wall was symbolic to what had been disturbed through the falling of the airship, right? So she was going back and reinstitutionalizing the keeps the information from the public, okay, or keeps the information from the people. And she was a part of this. And so I was like when she said it, she whispered it to me. She didn't say this out loud for everybody to hear, but she said it to me. She was like, and then she came back on stage and she was like, I just, being that I found this person that they were the perpetrator of this, I think I should be elected to office. Okay. So Miss Thing was really going for it. And, I think this is symbolic for a lot of a lot of innovative things that underdogs and people that possibly don't have the commercialized limelight come up with. It's easily stolen. It's easily, we put content on YouTube and then, you know, even though we don't watch too many other people's videos like that, who knows? A person could take our knowledge, take our videos, and just regurgitate it, and they have the subscribers, they have the following, they even have the tunneling or the networking or the platform to distribute products, make profit, make you know they're making profit off of content that we are originally coming with. Not always when I say originally, theory has been sort of spread around and evolved and mutated and everything, but we said it here kind of first. So I think this was symbolic on a commercialized girl, okay, who's more appealing to them, coming out and saying, I'm going to rebrand this product. I'm going to rebrand what happened and make it, even though it was a tragedy, even though this person shook it up with their presence and what they said or what they did, I'm going to show you a safe way. But it's going to be the same thing. Because what she did was she took a brick from the rubble of where the airship landed. Yes, honey, I didn't say that part. She took the brick from the rubble of where the airship landed. So, bitch, I brought that airship out of the sky, Miss Thing, honey, not you. But yet you took from that and you put it in the new wall that you were building, a more commercialized venue that you were building. So then she comes to me, honey, and she's like, oh, well, she was like, well, tell me what happened. Did you decide to like take this thing down? And I was like, I explained to her, I'm like, I had no concept or idea about the history. I didn't know these two countries even existed and what they were going through. I just was like, okay, like, what is this object? And I reached for it just out of curiosity and I pulled it down. And this is what happened. I was like, I don't think I should be at fault. And she was like, well, justice has to be served one way or another because, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, well, if you think about it, it's involuntary manslaughter. And I was like, involuntary manslaughter, bitch. Like, again, I did not know this was what this object led to, nor did I know the potential of its impact. So I guess it is involuntary manslaughter, but girl, like, I'm still not trying to be charged. So what the fuck are you talking about? Kind of situation. And so she was just like giving me, and like, this is why I really don't like dealing with the police. Like, I've never been in trouble with the law, but even like dealing with them, like, I've had conversations with them, something happens and they want like a report, or they want your testimony, or they want like your side of the story or something. They always, yeah, like, they have such a condescending, and they will try to question, mock, or jest or undermine your intelligence and what you're saying, and try to always make you feel small. So that's how she was talking to me, like, oh, well, well, like we said, you should have called the authorities. If you noticed something strange, you should have called us right on the spot, and da 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 da. And it's like, who thinks to do that? Like who? I mean, yeah, like, if something on earth happens, kind of like, oh my god, like a shootout or just something violent, then yeah, you're like, okay, 911, or someone's hurt, oh yeah, 911. But if you see a strange fucking object in the sky and it looks ethereal, it looks just strange, and you're able to reach out and touch it, I mean, and you kind of don't have the concept of danger in your mind, like, it can burn me, it can hurt me, it can kill me or something. Like, bitch, you're gonna reach out. I don't know. Like, maybe that's just me. Curiosity kills the cat, honey. But I'm gonna reach out and touch that shit, and I did. And so, there was this guy. So, she says to my mom, and she says to this other officer that's standing there. She's like, "Yeah, well, we're gonna book her." Finally, she acknowledges me as her. It's like, "Well, yeah, we're gonna book her. We're gonna take her in." Blah blah blah. And then around, and he's like, yeah, well, where you're going, honey, they're gonna whoop your ass. He says it just like that, like, where you're going, they're gonna whoop your ass. Boy, I'm telling you, kind of situation. And it scared me. Like, I was like, oh my god, like, I was just in this state of like, wow, like, my life is completely altered. Like, the minute that they tell you that you are now under their jurisdiction, well, you're always under their shit, but now they're stripping away your liberty and your freedom, and you are going to be a prisoner. Okay? Your liberty and your freedom stripped from you, and you're going to be locked up with other carnal, savage people who fight and, steal, fighting and stealing and violence and rape and all type of shit. That's nothing for me. And me, as a person on such a frequency that I'm on, I don't align with those people. So yeah, I would be small fry, I would be fresh meat, and I would succumb to possible abuse in those facilities. And so yeah, like, when the guy was saying it to me, Miss Vanessa Williams, fish, honey, she had like this little smirk on her face, like, she was happy, she was glad, okay. And I'll never forget, like, at that moment that I thought that this was the destiny that I was succumbing to, there was a voice inside of me that said no. It was like, no. And I'll never forget, like, it started very low and it raised up into like a no. And when I said it like that, I shook myself and I woke up. I shook myself and I woke up. So it's funny that in the video that we did last night, and I'm gonna wrap this up. In the video that we did last night about the afterlife and going through the different realms and dimensions and your mind being able to carry you to places. Isn't it so funny that when you have dreams, you're so in the moment of the dream. I mean, at that moment or whatever hours I was asleep, that was my reality. My mind did not know the concept of me here in this reality right now, which is my present reality. It only knew that I was in, you know, a high rise apartment. I saw this situation. I reached for the situation and it caused this domino effect. And yet here I was now facing the consequence of that. So, but yet and still, when it got so bad and it was like the girls were trying to condemn me, that I was able to kind of shake myself out of it. Now, obviously, in this reality, when you can't disassociate yourself um, from, when your ass do something bad, the girls are coming for you and you can't like just shake yourself out of it. But there was something still inside of me that knew that it was like something wasn't right. Like, I was like, no, bitch, like you will not police me. You will not take me in. You will not try to hold me back. Like, you will not. Like, hell no. And I woke up. So I think, and I have a little bit of battery left, so I should probably like shut this down before it goes out. But I think the overall concept of the dream and the symbology behind the dream is that there are forces outside of us as well as within us that constantly try to um, shame, undermine, inhibit, hold us back, sabotage, usurp us from pursuing higher knowledge, higher elevation, higher levels of consciousness and understanding, and seeing beyond the veil. No one else saw that chain. No one else thought to even be in such a position to stare at the sky like that, to see such an object. But it stood out to me. And I took the initial first step to reach for it and touch it and bring it down. Even though the consequence was something that was traumatic and shook shit up, it was still, and maybe that does speak, maybe that's a higher calling from either me or a higher self or something to say, reach for it, bitch. Don't be scared. Reach for it and try to always seek to see beyond. Seek if there's deeper meaning. Always try to see beyond, to see deeper than the surface or beyond the veil. A lot of what this world consists of is so shallow. It's so vague. It has no depth. And bitch, I don't exist like that. I don't work like that. I've never been a person that can just get with the shallow. I've had my era of doing it, but I've outgrown that shit, honey, and I need something deep. I need it to feel, to live. Like I will pursue it. So yeah, regardless of the motherfucking consequence, bitch. Like the girls can come try to get me if they want, honey. But I think this also shows that a great deal of us, our magic and our pursuit is being policed. Still, in today's day, a lot of it is being policed. If they don't come and get you, you know, through friends and family, bitch, they trying to come get you in your dreams, trying to scare you, trying to deter you, trying to your own thoughts, your own, your own aggregates and things like that. So, with that, that is my storytime dream tease. really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's like pretty random. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And don't forget, if you guys want personal one-on-one readings with us or you're interested in spell work, please contact us at rainatees@gmail.com. We will leave the contact info in the description box below. Yeah, I'm not cursing and cutting up and acting a fool because it's too early for that. But thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.